This is Michael Popok. Look at the glasses. Look at the time. It must be time for Legal AF After Dark. Don't sleep on attorney generals around the country like Chris Mays. She's going after Donald Trump's co-conspirators, fake electors in her state, and doing the dirty work and the cleanup work that the Department of Justice failed to do. Watch the attorney generals in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. There's a series of new developments in the Arizona one led by Chris Mays' office, including getting a major witness, a Donald Trump former lawyer, to cooperate with them and get one of the fake electors to flip. What does that do to the case? What does that do to Donald Trump? Why wasn't Donald Trump indicted after all? We break it down for you on Legal AF. Take a listen.
I want to turn to Arizona. We talked about at the beginning of the show this packed crowd that Vice President Kamala Harris, Governor Walz, spoke in front of in Glendale, Arizona. But a lot of legal developments in Arizona. We have Donald Trump's former lawyer, Jenna Ellis, entering into a cooperation agreement with state prosecutors to testify against all of the co-conspirators, all of the fake electors who were criminally indicted, against Meadows, against Giuliani, against everybody who's being criminally prosecuted there. So she's become a state's witness. I think she also pled guilty in Georgia, so that's a big development. You had one of the fake electors enter into a guilty plea this past week. Lorraine Pellegrino admitted to guilt and being involved in the fake elector scheme, and she'll be cooperating and testifying against the other fake electors. And then we learned this other thing about the grand jury in Arizona before the indictment was ultimately handed down, where 18 of these criminal defendants were indicted as co-conspirators of Donald Trump. But Michael, the grand jury wanted to indict Donald Trump. And they were like, so why haven't you presented like the shooter? Like you presented the guys who put the bullets in, you presented the guys who built the gun, but we want to indict Trump. And then the prosecutors put on a PowerPoint presentation that actually misconstrued what's called the Pettit policy of the DOJ. And the prosecutor in Arizona's put on this presentation saying, actually, we shouldn't be indicting him because the DOJ is already doing a prosecution. That's not what the Pettit policy is. I mean, if there was an acquittal at the Department of Justice level, then the states aren't supposed to prosecute. But that's not what happened, nor are state prosecutors bound by DOJ policy. The policy that was being presented was, if there's an acquittal at the state level, should the DOJ have a federal prosecution if there's an acquittal at the state? And the Pettit policy says we really shouldn't unless it's the most egregious kind of mishandling of the legal system. So somehow that was contorted so that Donald Trump ultimately wasn't indicted in Arizona. And I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that was strategic, that they just didn't want to indict him? They wanted to get their guilty pleas. They could indict Donald Trump at a later time. They want to have these convictions. They know if Trump was in, then Trump would use all that PAC money and help the other criminal defendants. If Trump's not included, try to maybe do it differently than what we see in Fulton County, Georgia, where Trump and all these people were included. It became a mess. Maybe don't include Trump at first, get everybody else to plead guilty, get all these convictions, and then do it as a two-step before you go for Donald Trump. So that was my theory about why not indict him. Because look, you have Chris Mays, a very good prosecutor over there, and it's not that I think he wants to avoid it. I think he wanted to just avoid it now, seeing what happened in Georgia. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that when we first reported on it, I thought that they had made a strategic decision based on they had the benefit of having seen Fulton County, and they decide, and the benefit of what Jack Smith had did. Remember, we were busy piecing together who are the 6 unindicted co-conspirators, and why is it just against Donald Trump? There it went the other way. He brought it just against Donald Trump and not against the others. Then you've got Fulton County, who brought it against Donald Trump and the others and got mired in the whole immunity or supremacy clause or executive privilege things. She's watching all of that. And let's be honest, I mean, there was an immunity case that was pending at the time when all of this happened. And I thought, like you did, because we jumped on a hot take when this first indictment first came out. I thought that the reason that they didn't do it, the reason that she didn't do it, Chris Mays, is because they just wanted to get the co-conspirator fake electors, because 11 out of the 18 are fake electors, similar to Georgia. And then the rest are this inner sanctum of this unholy inner sanctum of Donald Trump, which is like, and many of which, as you noted, overlap with Georgia. Mike Roman, the election day coordinator, the mule for the fake elector certificates, and Jenna Ellis again, and Rudy Giuliani again, and John Eastman again, and that group. And you remembered, Ben, that in Georgia, there was a special purpose grand jury that actually wanted more people indicted than Fani Willis exercising her prosecutorial discretion. And that's what it comes down to, is then she ultimately indicted. And that's what it comes down to, is prosecutorial discretion. Now, I didn't know about at the time what you just presented, which was that they sort of misled the grand jury, or they just had a fundamental misunderstanding, which shocks me because Chris Mays is really, really smart in that position. I mean, Arizona is filled with really smart women lawyers. Their governor was a Secretary of State and got elevated, by the people to be the governor, and now Chris is the attorney general. So I still believe it's the right thing to do right now. I've done hot takes, I think you have too, where we're already getting the flipping that we started to see in Georgia. Jenna Ellis was the first shoe to drop. The next shoe to drop was one of the fake electors. Ms. Pellegrino has decided to cooperate, because these people facing 9 felonies because they were in love with Donald Trump, doesn't do it for them anymore, because they have nothing to gain. They're not hoping for another Trump administration. They're not going to be benefited. Like, she was like the head of a women's Republican group somewhere in rural Arizona. And so like she's not going to go take one for the team, because she doesn't get anything back. I mean, that's the difference that you and I have analyzed between that and that upper level in that food chain, right? This inner circle that believe they are going to be benefited. They're going to be restored to power. They're going to, they're the shadow government, and so they're willing to go down with the ship with Donald Trump and take one for the team, because they think they're going to be rewarded in the afterlife if Donald Trump gets reelected. This other group of like the fake electors who just signed the receipts for the conspiracy, like they're heading for the exit, and they're like, where is the key to the door? I need out. So there's going to be at least a half of the fake electors that are going to cooperate with Chris Mays' investigation, and they better hurry, because as we've talked about in prior legal AFs, prosecutors under theory like, don't make me work that hard. The harder you make me work, and I start giving out deals, the next people coming in are not going to get misdemeanors and probations. The next people coming in are going to get felonies. And so that incentivizes people to hurry up and make their decisions. That's why in Georgia, some of the former lawyers for Donald Trump got felonies, and some of the former lawyers got misdemeanors, and some of them gave tearful, like, I'm sorry, and like Jenna Ellis, which of course lit up all the prosecutors around the country, because they're like, well, she's going to fold like a cheap suit, like a card table. Let's just go after her. And so she's going to spill the beans. And according to reporting and Chris Mays' own office, they gave her that sweetheart deal, Jenna Ellis, because she's got the goods on so many of the other co-conspirators, and maybe even up to Donald Trump for another indictment, because the indictment window is not closed, of course, that it was worth giving her basically a pass for what she did, not only the 9 felony counts, because they need her as a cooperating witness. And the other reason is it's because of what happened in what we saw in the lack of cooperation that made Jack Smith's life harder in Mar-a-Lago. He always thought that Walt Nauta, the butler, Carlos de Oliveira, the maintenance worker, were going to flip with a lot of pressure on them, the way they were able to get the IT worker, Yuscil Taveras, to flip. But it didn't happen. And it made the case a lot harder because of that. Even though they got all those housekeepers and maintenance workers and cooks and whatever else at Mar-a-Lago, the eyes and ears of Mar-a-Lago, to testify against Donald Trump. All these nameless, faceless people that Donald Trump couldn't, if he tripped over them, he wouldn't know who they were, let alone they were on his payroll. They never got those key people. Chris, now she knows she's never going to get John Eastman. She's never going to get Giuliani. She's never going to get Mike Roman. These are the truest. You prick them and they bleed Trump, whatever color Trump is, and that's it. And so without them, they can't get the rest of the case. So they got to give a sweetheart deal to Jenna Ellis. Hope they pick up like Ken Chesborough again. I'm sure they will. And then get all these fake electors to flip. And then they got their case. And then they can revisit the issue after they see what happened with this immunity decision. Because they got to now apply that immunity decision isn't just federal. It applies to state prosecution of Donald Trump, and it has to be followed. As murky and muddy as of a decision it is, it has to be followed. Welcome back. If you always wonder what legal AF means, now you know. And if you don't, join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this MeidasTouch YouTube channel. Free subscribe. Help them get to 3 million before Labor Day. That's how close we are. This is a completely people-powered network. It's legal AFer powered. It's Meidas Mighty powered. And we're growing organically by word of mouth without a marketing department. So if you would, take that clip, send it off to people in your life and say, hey, you know that show I like, that podcast, Legal AF, it makes me feel good. Here's a clip. Maybe they'll join us and either pick up the audio podcast platform by plugging in Legal AF wherever they pick up their podcasts, or follow us on Wednesdays and Saturdays with you. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's possible. That was Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Maybe you're new to the MeidasTouch network. Maybe you've only seen other content. You don't know about Legal AF. Welcome. I'm personally inviting you to join our journey as part of yours. Wednesdays, Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time for live YouTube recording of the podcast, where we sit at that intersection of law and politics, curate the top 4 or 5 stories, and bring it to you as practicing lawyers who know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics. How refreshing. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.